Welcome to Everyone Deserves Sunshine. I'm Diana.
And I'm Anusha. We're the girls in the crease.
This is episode 6. We're talking about anti-dystopia today.
We're really just diving right in. You know what I mean?
We're jumping in.
None of that setting it up, lubrication.
Today we're doing what Jacob Tierney did. We're scrapping the prep.
You're not watching how it gets made. You're just seeing the final product.
Correct. And you know what?
Correct.
That is important here today because we have
important.
a lot to talk about. And we
do.
also have an interview later. So we got to get started. So we wanted to talk about anti-dystopia because, I don't know. It's weird, right? Because the world is so great and we really just live in a perfect utopian world. So why would we need anti-dystopia? In all seriousness, we wanted to talk about anti-dystopia because the world is shit. And it is quite dystopian, starting to feel more so every single day. And this genre of romance and the show specifically gave us so much joy in a world where joy is so scarce, right?
I want to say I like that, but I actually don't like that at all. I don't like that where we are.
Which part do you not like?
All of it. But I understand what you're saying. This show in this moment has brought so many people this incredible sense of joy. And we talk a lot about what's our favorite words: nuance, earnestness, authenticity, all of that, right? Okay. So I just want to read something that Jacob Tierney said that also just speaks to the earnestness, authenticity, and nuance. And obviously, I'm reading this after I've watched the show in its entirety, maybe a couple of times. So here's what he says about this romance in general. This is a genre that women love and write and read and are primary consumers of. It just doesn't get treated with a lot of respect, and nor do the people who make it, nor do the people who adapt it. So I think what they, as in the people, are responding to, or at least I hope, is the fact that we came to this pretty full-hearted, and as fans and as people who want to honor this material and want to honor the genre and make it as romantic as we can. That's certainly what I wanted to do.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I love that word, full-hearted. I feel like full hearts are a rarity now. I think all of us feel that sense of drain, that there's not even room to think about things that are joyful in nature.
Perhaps not that there's not room, but it almost feels a little bit guilty to consume media that's joyful, right? Because you're how can you possibly enjoy something when the world's on fire? And I love that he thought of it this way because you know how side note, I don't like cooking. I hate cooking. I hate cooking so much, right? You're looking at me funny, but you're gonna understand where I'm going with this, right? And some of my friends love cooking. They love cooking, and their families always say whatever you make is delicious. And then whatever I make is either burnt or just not good. And I think it's because, people who love cooking put love into their cooking. And so when you're eating it, you're oh my God, this is delicious because it's made with love. And that is how Jacob Tierney made the show. It was made with love, right? And that's why it's so good and people are enjoying it so much. You could taste the love, and that's how you can taste the love in people's cooking. Not in my cooking, because I'm not making it with love. I'm making it with I cannot believe I fucking have to make dinner again tonight. But other people who love it, it tastes good, right?
You're now going with non sequitur analogies. I really like this for us. You mentioned guilt, Diana, and the other thing that makes me feel guilty is the escapism that I naturally crave during these times. My brain wants to leave. You want to check out of the existential dread.
Yeah.
But that also means sometimes you check out of real life happening in front of you.
Things you need to fucking
do.
Yeah.
And things also that are important to tether you to the world, in a good way. And you miss it because you're seeking this almost high, escapism high.
I am still very much into escapism with all of this. I've definitely been a little bit escaping my everyday responsibilities in the world. I think most of it has to do with the fact that it is bringing all of us so much joy because we're so used to not feeling that much joy all the time, right?
If you escape and you return depleted, to the real
Mm.
world. That is ostensibly not helpful if you
Yeah.
have responsibilities. But if you escape and you come back more rejuvenated,
Mm.
which I would say, like, for you, like, having known you for this long and having worked with you in other places where our creativity and our very specific skill set is needed, I see a difference in the way your creativity has been utilized and exploded with this, where you look and seem happier. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
That I think is
Thanks.
good. So today we're going to be talking to Jenka, who wrote this absolutely fabulous and thought provoking article called Heated Rivalries Anti-Dystopian Art. Welcome, Jenka. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you got into the show.
So, way back in the day, I was originally a film student, which sort of ties into how we
Mm-hmm.
landed here. I moved to LA. I worked in film like a little tiny bit, but pretty quickly got into producing music festivals and nightlife events. And I did that for like about a decade. And then I was in marketing and advertising. And then I ended up in technology doing user experience design, whether it's film, whether it's music festivals, whether it's applications on your phone. It's all experience design. And so um, that is kind of a lens through which I look at both what I do professionally and then also the way that I look at culture and the entertainment that we see. And um, that kind of led me to writing this essay. After I wrote it, I looked back and like a year ago, I had started like posting about how I was seeing this trend of just constant brutality and violence and things you don't even it would be comedies. You'd be watching a comedy and suddenly there would be gun violence that would be ostensibly supposedly for laughs. Or I was watching this show called Wheel of Time and there was this particularly really stood out to me. There was just like this almost pornographic sequence of two women killing each other over and over and over in like various ways. It's like a dream sequence where they keep dying, but it was just like such a luxuriation in the graphicness, the visual lushness of watching this like intense violence and brutality, and it was presented in the guise of entertainment and beautifully shot, and you were really supposed to react to it in this kind of like enjoyment way, but what it was showing you and depicting was just incredibly disturbing. And that's just kind of like throughout all of our culture, throughout of all of our
Mm-hmm.
entertainment, all of our media, and we actually almost take it as a given. This was already things that were on my mind a year ago and before that, and then when the show came out, when I saw it, it was like just a referendum on everything that I had been thinking about in this vein. And to your question about how I got into the show, how I found it. So initially, I've been seeing ads. I think we all had sort of been like seeing ads like on Instagram or something like, oh, Heated Rivalry. I'm like, well, what I thought it was either going to be one of two things. I thought it was either going to be like this really saccharine Hallmark kind of like young adult sort of thing, or I thought it was gonna be Euphoria. Like, I thought it was gonna be this, like, really bleak, depressing, like, something that's gonna make you feel like shit after you watched it, and I saw somebody post something about it on Threads that piqued my curiosity. I'm like, this reaction to it seems like not either one of those things that I think that it is, and then I watched it, and, like, the rest is history.
I never made it through Euphoria. I watched like 3 or 4 episodes and I couldn't. It was so dark. I couldn't do it. I know people love it. I know people are obsessed with it. I felt the same way about Game of Thrones. I couldn't do it.
Totally.
So,
I can't
yeah.
I didn't watch either one. I watched I think 2 episodes of Euphoria for those exact same reasons, because I think I was so aware about, like, of seeing these dystopian tropes in everything we're
Mm.
seeing is, like so the other part of this is that, I also studied hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and so I understand what these visions are doing to us in a kind of like a trance-like way,
Mm-hmm.
like, what kind of state they're putting us into and what kind of vision they're suggesting to us.
Mhm.
And I just don't wanna be hypnotized into that. Like, I don't wanna
Mhm.
go into those worlds.
Can you tell us what dystopia means to you and what anti-dystopia means to you?
Dystopia, I think, the sort of the very generic kind of vision like, idea that comes to mind when you say that word is like a sci-fi future.
Mm,
But if you think about things like Minority Report,
mm.
like, how much of that has just become a roadmap for where we've ended up?
Oh, yeah, right, right.
So it seems
Absolutely.
speculative, but that vision primes us to accept that that is what the future is gonna be, and so when it
Mhm.
arrives, like, "Well, no, here it
Here
is."
we are.
And so that's one part of it, but the other part of it is that I also think there are shows that aren't necessarily science fiction, they're not speculative, they're like Euphoria, they're set in a world that is, like, ostensibly like the world we're in now, but they're
Mhm.
so full of cynicism. They
Mm.
are, like, characters experiencing a genuine human connection or emotion, even when that does somehow manage to, like, squeak through, is rewarded with pain
Mm.
and, punishment and how silly to have expected
Mm.
connection. Like, aren't you such a sophisticated person that you would have recognized this is not reality, right?
Like, it's like, you need to experience pain and tragedy for it to have value, right? Think about these Oscar movies that win, like, these actors and actresses are supposed to be doing, like, physically challenging or emotionally challenging things in order to, like, be worthy of art.
I think there was literally just like a couple days ago an interview with Jacob Tierney, and he was saying how like characters on the shows aren't allowed to like have sex and be happy. If they have sex, they must suffer.
And, he said it in the milieu of, like, queer narratives.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I think that is also that is pervasive throughout, hetero narratives too, like, the whole cliche of, like, any sort of, like, thriller or horror story, it's like the girl that has sex is the one that dies.
Mhm.
Mm, mhm. Mhm.
That's
Like Sarah
really
Michelle Gellar in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
yeah.
And that is an example of this, like, of a trope that is this, and you know
Yeah.
what to expect when you see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, I think there's something really subversive
Yeah.
about the vision that Heated Rivalry presented in contrast to all of these things that we are primed to expect.
Yeah. So you get into that a little bit in your article about anti-dystopian art. So tell me now, like how does Heated Rivalry like check all those anti-dystopian boxes?
Yes. So, a friend of mine is a futurist, her name is Monica Bielskita, and she put together a few years ago
What
this.
is a futurist?
So a futurist is like what Monica does, for example, she actually worked with movies, movie studios. If you're a movie and you want to create a vision of the future for like some future, sci-fi thing, like what is that going to look like, the world building of that.
Got it.
So that's kind of the idea. And so she put together what she called the Protopia futures framework. She had this kind of like these dimensions of what protopia is. And I took a similar approach in how I wrote my essay because it's structured into these three sections. And the first one is sex and pleasure. The second one is connection and intimacy, and the third one is joy and creativity. These are all aspects of what is kind of the antithesis of this dystopian worldview. Because even if you think about something like creativity, if you think about the street in a sci-fi future vision,
Mhm.
are there murals on it? Is there like actual human creativity that is constant everywhere? Or
Mhm.
do you see that in the future? And so I took these kind of dimensions of leaning into this, leaning into sex that is actually pleasurable and full of mutuality rather than so much of the sex that we are exposed to in media, which is non-consensual sex we don't actually want to see. It's like disturbing, right? Why
Mm.
is it beamed into our eyeballs? So
That's why I couldn't watch the Game of Thrones. It was just all
correct. Yeah,
assault and
totally.
yeah, it's awful.
And that's entertainment. Be entertained.
People love
So
it.
I took those dimensions as kind of the like anchor points around which to tell the story of how Heated Rivalry approaches creating the the experience design of its world and of the show that you're experiencing through these very different lenses relative to, what a typical sort of dystopian cynical view would be.
Is there something about something that makes something like anti-dystopian art versus just like happy and fluffy?
Joyful. Yeah, joyful. Yeah.
Or is it the time we're living in that makes it as such?
I think in the case of Heated Rivalry specifically, I think it was just such a dramatic departure, and
Mm.
it's evidenced, I think, in the way that I'm sure you guys have seen this too, where if you watch people's reactions to what when they talk about what they were thinking or expecting to happen as they were watching the episodes, even up until the very last minute, literally our heroes are riding off into the sunset together and people thought that there was going to be a car accident.
Mm.
And people thought that their phones were going to get hacked and that their messages were going to get leaked and they would get discovered, or that, Shane being when he comes out to his parents, that was going to end in some sort of traumatic kind of way. And I think at every given moment throughout this arc of the show, where we are just so primed to expect these tropes to head into something devastating, it took the decision to be like, but what if actually something positive happens?
Mm.
And not
Yeah.
something saccharine
Mm.
and like hallmarky,
Mhm.
because there's still a lot of like emotional depth and emotional complexity. It's not just on the surface of things. And so I think it's treating the positive and the good potential outcomes with the same depth and
Mm.
nuance as you would the sophisticated dark outcomes. I think is a big part of that. It's that difference of like it's just a Hallmark Kids kind of show, which this is definitely not, versus, like that kind of like prestige
Mm.
entertainment that actors want to get they think they're going to get
Yeah.
awards for, and it lets
Yeah.
them emote and stretch their craft, right? This is that for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it has that element of sophistication and depth and nuance, but it says, but what if we explored also positive things happening
Yeah.
in the way that they do in people's lives?
Yeah.
You know what it is also, I think, is that, like, you do feel that sense of, like, your stomach swooping, like something bad is gonna happen because the setting, right? You're like, it's, professional sports. You're like, "Okay," and then it's, like, a queer story, and you're like, "Oh," and then it's, like, an immigrant from a not very LGBTQ friendly country. You're like, "Oh," like, it feels like it's like setting up for these red flags of tragedy to
Yeah.
happen, and it doesn't happen. I was thinking about the difference between maybe like Ted Lasso and Schitt's Creek, which to me evoke similar feelings of happiness and joy. If
Yeah.
either of you watch those shows,
Yeah.
and what makes it different, I think, for me, I mean, although Schitt's Creek does have a really strong queer story through it, but it's like it feels like there's all these like possible places where tragedy is gonna happen by the sheer setup of the story.
I do think a lot of it is just how we've been primed. Like,
Yeah.
there are templates to writing movies, like act
Mhm.
1, act 2, act 3. It's a 5-act structure. This is the beat that has to happen by act 2 so
Mhm.
that you get the payoff in act 5, da da da. And there are very sort of expected things that transpire, and also especially, and a lot of this has been talked about kind of in the current entertainment environment in terms of like, we're all on our phones when we're watching shows. And
Mm.
so how do those shows need to respond to that with ever even more intensely cliche
Mm.
things that they give us as we keep watching shows that are, outputted through the same template, and movies that are outputted through the same template. Kind of, we as audiences, we know what we're
Expect,
gonna
yeah.
expect. And so I think a lot of it is also playing and subverting that. It's
Mm.
subverting our own expectations
Mhm.
that come from a place of us existing in a media environment that has taught
Mhm.
us what to expect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we've been conditioned to expect the worst, honestly.
Mhm.
We get so few
Totally.
pieces of media and art that make us feel pure joy. This is why this one hits on such like a visceral level. Do you think that there's anything about the anti-dystopia genre or art that gets like delegitimized because it's associated with the feminine genre? How like the very thing that makes it so powerful is what gets dismissed as unserious? I know we talked a little bit about that, but do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conversation that has gone on around, like, specifically the romance genre. I wish anti-dystopia was a genre, like,
It
but
it needs to be. Maybe
it
this is
should
it. This
be.
is the beginning.
I think what this show does lean into are tropes that are very expected sort of romance genre conventions in a good way. And that obviously is a genre that is completely dismissed as unserious and unworthy of any kind of like serious consideration,
Mhm.
because it is primarily created by women, consumed by women,
Mhm.
and obviously anything that is primarily created by and for women is de facto unserious. I actually think the really interesting part is in the adaptation is the way that the female characters were expanded
Mm.
in the show relative
Yeah.
to the book in like really, really nuanced and profound ways
Mhm.
that they showed women where, you know, at any given, again, from the like the sort of trope expectations, at any given moment where you could have expected, oh, this is the villain, this is the person that's going to stand in the way of, this is going to be the foil that is the obstacle in the way
Mhm.
of the relationship that the two star-crossed lovers we want to get together are going to have. At every given point that could have been where it went, it didn't go there.
In your essay, you say you describe cynicism as prophylactic, and actually, this really spoke to me, Diana. I don't know if it speaks to you because we are very different people, but both of us have this very common thread, and I think this is why that makes us like not just friends, but like effective partners and things like this, and stuff that we did like worked on from like a activism portion. You said cynicism is prophylactic. And I always told Diana, like, I'm the kind of person that isn't doing what I'm doing because I have this like rosy vision of the world or this innate sense of optimism. I'm like gritting my teeth and like pushing, like I have a streak of like the misanthrope in me. I feel like I'm like, you can do better, humanity, and I have that sense of cynicism as prophylaxis in my head because it's protective, right? It is protective. So, like, tell me a little bit more about that and how that ties into what heated rivalry is kind of subverting.
So, the way that cynicism is prophylactic is that it keeps us from feeling anything too much, right? It's like, well, if you expect the worst anyway, and nothing can ever be better anyway, you sort of protected yourself from disappointment,
Exactly.
but you've also precluded yourself from being able to actually feel what it feels like when things really do go well
Mhm.
and the embodied sense of that.
Mm.
And actually, when I was writing that, I was thinking about there's a show that it's like these very sort of like superficial characters, and on one of the episodes, this other character showed up who's like this very sweet, sincere, genuine person. And one of the characters like didn't even know what to do with this. And as they were sort of just kind of like starting to open up to this person, the show killed him. He died in an accident. So haha, joke's on you. If you feel anything, it's gonna be bad. You're what a silly, naive thing to have thought that you could be allowed to feel something real. That cynicism protects you from venturing into this territory where you could get hurt. The whole arc of the show is just like such deep, genuine emotion and yearning and desire that is really authentic. It's not like objectified desire. It's very
Mhm.
real.
Mhm.
And we go through the ups and downs with these characters as they kind of get in their own way and deny themselves. And at the end, they are able to get past this. They're able to have genuine conversations that lead to this real connection. And the takeaway from that is that this is possible if you follow what you're really feeling and don't try to mask it and don't try to protect yourself from your own feelings and desires. Good things are also possible from that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said that dystopia was my most favorite genre. I consumed dystopia, all of it, all the
Mm.
time, since like probably high school, maybe even before. And then when I was teaching, most of the literature that we expose students to in the curriculum, right? Because the curriculum's pretty much set, is dystopian literature. Like 1984 and Animal Farm and Brave New World, The Lottery. I mean, everything we read in high school, even maybe in middle school, is dystopian. And often my students, I mean, even Great Gatsby, I mean, it's not dystopian, but it's depressing. And my students always, it never failed every year, they'd be like, why are we reading all this depressing stuff? Like, can't you give us something happy? I guess my response to them was like, well, this is where you're learning, right? Like you're learning through
Mm.
these like ideas of what the world could be like if we don't do something about it. To me, it always almost like a warning. It's warning you to what might happen. When I was reading your article, you said something like it like desensitized us
Mm.
and it conditions us to accept what is already happening,
Mhm.
right? It's not even like you read the dystopia, you learn from it, and then you prevent it from happening. It's the opposite. You read the dystopia, you are conditioned to understand it and expect it to happen. And then when it does happen, you're like, okay, well, I read about this, so this is just
Story
how it
checks
is.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense. I guess because I haven't or we haven't seen too much anti-dystopian art or things that
Yeah.
bring you so much joy. You mentioned Anusha, like Ted Lasso, so joyful. Why is it so popular? Because it is so joyful, right? When you see that, I think that's why like it hits you on such a level, like we said, right? Because like you're so not used to it. Like watching The Handmaid's Tale, like after the first two seasons, I couldn't do it. Like
Mhm.
I finished it. Eventually I did finish it, but I skipped like 2 or 3 years between
Mm.
because I said to my girlfriends, like, I can't. It gives me such anxiety.
For
Mhm.
sure.
We're living in it. We're living in it. So why do I also need to see it on TV on
Well, the
top of
really
already living in it?
Yeah.
The really interesting question is, think about all the people that it takes to create that. Like, it takes so many people to bring that vision to life. And, like, what is that experience that it's creating, not just for the
Mm.
people who are making that world, but for the people who are consuming it. And that vision, like, how many people did it take to put that vision into the world that lets people essentially thematically experience brutalization of women. For what?
Mhm.
To accomplish what? Like, we learned something we didn't know? Like, we know.
Yeah.
We know, we've
Right,
seen it,
right.
we've heard it. Like when you said like presents a violent, degraded world, has likewise turned sex, a fundamental aspect of humanness, into a plot device for violence and degradation, right? So like you said, pleasure becomes torture
Yeah,
in this dystopian world.
yeah.
Yeah. So I like really enjoy dystopia, but right now it just, as you said, it feels like this bleakness is like completely unending and unsolvable sometimes. And, you're like, oh my God, should darkness just win? Because I'm so exhausted. I joke to our friends, like, if a la Matrix, if like the AI wins, and then we're in the sleep pod, and I'm like, my brain can finally rest, I'll probably like drain the system of energy while it re energizes me. But it just like, you just want to catch your breath, right?
Yep.
That's what I
Yeah,
mean. You're
totally.
like, it's just I just need to breathe. It's not nihilistic because I don't think I'm that. It's almost like you have this fatigue for these kind of like really thematically heavy, but really truly tragic dystopian futures, right? Because it really feels like at this moment you're living it and you're not really sure how to get out of it or if we'll get out of it. I think for me that is such a key thing because it has depth and intimacy, personal stakes, but you don't feel like you have to, save the world while you're in it. It makes the world small enough, like you can have the spectrum of human emotion and it just be about these two people kind of living sort of pseudo normal lives.
Well, that's the thing that I wrote kind of at the end is that what you experience with Heated Rivalry is something that feels very different.
Mhm.
Like literally in your body somatically, you feel this journey that you've been on with these characters. And, I talk about it's like you've literally just like experienced falling in love. Mirror neurons are firing. You have been on this journey with them. And what it shows isn't the possibility of a future that looks different and looks so futuristic and how what kind of crazy contrivances can we think about what could happen. It feels different. It
Mhm.
feels different from how we're used to entertainment making us feel. It feels different from how just any given thing we're looking at on our screen, be it entertainment media or news media, anything we're seeing on our screen makes us feel. It feels like a crazy futuristic experience because it's so different from what we're having now. It can only
Yeah.
possibly exist, even though the show is, I guess, set in the past, but it feels like a departure from the present, and our minds sort of think of that as a future.
It's sort of, like, bittersweet to think about. Like, are we so aching for just these, like, small stories with deep personal connections? And the answer to that is yes.
Do you think that anti-dystopia you mentioned that it's not a genre. Do you think it can be a genre? And is it contagious? Like, will we get more of this? Because,
Mm.
you mentioned in your article that, like, Hollywood basically does not do this. Whether they can't or they don't think people want it, whatever that may be, I think this proved to them that people want it. But I do wonder, like, is Hollywood going to take this and say, oh, this worked. This is like a winning
Yeah.
formula. We want to do this. Or are they going to say, like, oh, it's a one-off. This can be made here, right? Like, what do you think?
I think it's definitely too big to ignore that there's something here. I don't know to what extent the Hollywood system, would understand what it is particularly about this
Mhm.
that created this kind of reaction. And also to some extent, it's kind of like lightning in a bottle. Like, I think there's going to be a very heated interest in romance for sure. It's too big to ignore. And I was just watching this old interview with Jacob Tierney from 2022. He's talking about, like, himself personally, really has a huge distaste for power dynamics in sexual relationships.
Mm.
And, like, he says it's a huge turn off for him. And that is a very kind of unique perspective when it comes to the entertainment and movie and TV tropes that we are exposed to, because we're basically spoon-fed Cinderella from the time we're children, and that is sort of the template of, this power disparity comes with hand in hand with romance.
Mhm.
And I think something that is so particular about the success of Heated Rivalry is that it leans into showing romance in a way that we just really don't get otherwise. People were like, I would see people like, I just finished Heated Rivalry. What else can I watch that's like this? And I'm
Mm.
like, yeah, right?
Yeah,
Nothing.
what else? Nothing, not this.
Well, listen, I tried watching, and I did. I watched Bridgerton, the next one, because I used to love it. I watched it.
Yeah,
Speaking of power dynamics, speaking
yeah.
of Cinderella's story, this season is the Cinderella story. They're literally retelling Cinderella, and I am watching it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I really did. It was the first thing I've enjoyed since starting, my fandom here. But I'm just watching it. I'm like, again?
Yeah,
Like,
I get
again? The same exact thing? And then the way it ends halfway through, I'm just like, this is why I love Heated Rivalry, because this is nothing. This is not scratching any romantic itch at all.
I think that there is something really universal in the same way that people do seem to like power dynamics within the sexual context. I think people also really don't like it, and there's a whole kind of
Perhaps we've been
sexuality.
conditioned to like the power
Mhm.
Have we been
dynamics, just
conditioned to
like
like
we've
it?
been
Right.
conditioned
What
to
else have
like
we seen?
dystopia. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and
So
it's not even it's to me, it's like you can have these things that occur in your sex life, and it doesn't have to, like, translate into some sort of, like, archetype of this is where you are, like, this is the, hole you fit in. Well, not the hole.
we're keeping
Girl,
that.
girl, we are not editing that out. That is staying. That is staying.
Oh god, I didn't even yeah, a box is what I meant. This is not the box you
I don't know if
fit.
that's better. We are keeping
Oh
all of this.
god.
Audience, enjoy. Unfiltered, unedited, Anusha.
Wow.
Ah,
Welcome to our podcast, Jenka.
yeah.
This is the stuff that we usually cut
This
out, but not
yeah,
this time.
not this one. Oh my god. Right, like, you can have times like, it doesn't have to translate to your entire life or your entire dynamic. You can have moments where one person is maybe in a different role and then it can reverse. To me, I think that's one of the most interesting things about the way they depict Ilya and Shane's sex life, because clearly Ilya is more experienced than Shane, and it's very clear right away.
Yeah.
But it doesn't become some sort of treatise on their entire relationship.
And it doesn't become a way for Ilya to exert dominance. It's so clear that he is so conscious of this potential disparity that he seeks to neutralize it because it's a turn on for him to
Mhm.
do that.
Mm.
And the thing about Shane is, like, as he says to Rose, like, he's getting exactly what he wants out of this
Yeah.
relationship. And do you know how much, like, power and assertiveness you have to be able to get exactly what you want out of a sexual experience? Like,
Yeah.
Shane's getting it. So
He is.
like, all of these situations where power could be wielded in a way to create disparity is neutralized because it turns the people involved in it on to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if that's not anti-dystopian, I don't know what is.
There
I
you
Boom.
know.
go.
There we go. There we go. Jenka, thank you so much for joining us today. I loved our conversation. I love your article. I read it 4 times because apparently I do that now. I reread and rewatch things multiple times.
Yeah, Diana's
Um,
never looked at anything twice before, and now she only does that.
That's not true. I mean,
I'm just joking.
you should see my copy of 1984. But anyway, so in your article you end with how Shane says to his parents, "We just want a future." And you say, Jenka, you say that he speaks for all of us. You say Heated Rivalry has broken through the onslaught of pop culture visions that make dystopia's cynical, joyless futures seem inexorable precisely because it is a piece of art that is not only shows us but allows us to feel that another world is truly possible, that lets us somatically experience a future beyond what exists now, a future we all actually want. Joy in the present makes joy in the future seems plausible, and that too is hope. And I just love that. I love that
love
for
that.
for us.
Because we
It
all
it
just
was
want
such a
hope.
great article.
Yep.
When you said I'm writing an article about anti-dystopia, I'm like, oh, I'm like, yes, it's perfect. Like I was like, it's perfect because this is what we're all feeling. This
Yeah.
this shift of like seeing dark, 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 living in dark, 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 and getting this light, this joy. So I thank you for writing it, and I thank you for coming on our podcast and for giving us your time.
This was such a pleasure. I loved having the opportunity to discuss the stuff that, like, previously was just, like, in my head. So I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening. We'll talk soon.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
Bye.
much. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
So, we have arrived once again to our moment of sunshine, which is very apropos given that we've been talking about dystopia and anti dystopia. So, I'm going to go first. I'm
Okay.
going to take it.
Shocker.
Shocker. My moment of sunshine is an entire evening. We had a Galentine's party.
Oh, you're taking my moment of sunshine.
Listeners, it actually was Diana because everyone in our group has ADHD and no one can commit to plans. We often need Diana to mother hen us into a plan. Because if it was us, all we would do is just like say, let's just show up somewhere.
Yeah, let's go to Philly on a Friday night with no reservations, with no plans. Let's just figure it out. Oh, also it's Valentine's Day weekend. We're just gonna show up somewhere. Yeah.
So, yes. Credit where credit's due, Diana planned the entire Galentine's and did a fabulous job, which is why it's my moment of sunshine. And because I'm this generous, I will let you share this moment with me. So it can
My
be our
gosh.
moment.
Is this my Galentine's Day present?
This is better. This is better.
No, you know what? I'm taking it. I'm stealing it. It was an awesome night. We went to see a burlesque show. We went out to dinner. We had margaritas and tacos. It was delicious. It's a good moment of sunshine. And it
It
brought us
is.
so much joy, like so much joy. I'm still like joyful from Friday night.
The restaurant was just so fun. The food was delicious. The entertainment was fantastic. But if we're really talking about anti dystopia and the antidote to the hellscape that is our world, feeling present in a moment, laughing and connecting with your friends, like that checked every box. So it was just really fun.
Next week on Everyone Deserves Sunshine, we're talking about queer representation.
This one is at the heart of the show, obviously. And we're going to have a guest to help us unwrap all of the things.
All of the things.
The show.
All of the strings.
All of the strings, all of the things. So we're excited. We're excited. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to say hi to the girls in the crease, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Everyone Deserves Sunshine.
And email us at everyonedeservesunshine@gmail.com because we love your emails and we will always respond. New episodes drop Mondays.
See you then.